About Cuba. That's where our spotlight goes tonight. Douglas Herbert is here. Douglas, you've been to Cuba.
I have been to Cuba.
I mean, obviously,
last year.
Fidel
Absolutely.
Castro been in charge for how many years now?
Absolutely. Since the revolution, since '59.
Okay, so since '59, and obviously
left power in 2006.
The sort of like, if you like, quintessential communist state, if you like. There it is. He's now saying that it's broken. You've been to Cuba. What was your experience of the way the economy is there?
Well, the economy is broken.
Yeah.
I mean, the island itself is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
The beaches are beautiful.
The people are very welcoming.
The music's wonderful. People are lovely. You can't help but noticing that behind those beautiful facades in the old Havana part of town, the buildings are crumbling, and you do have a sense of dilapidation everywhere. It's sort of this faded glory sort of feel, especially in the old part of the city. What's interesting here is that, Castro has been the paramount leader. He was the only leader of Cuba since the revolution, since '59. He left office, as we all know, 2006. He disappeared, sort of was out of the public eye for 4 years, a mysterious illness. Now, all of a sudden, he's been re-emerging in the past couple of months, Mark, and he decides to grant an interview to an American journalist. First interview he has granted to a U.S. journalist since he left power. A guy named Jeffrey Goldberg writes for The Atlantic. Got a call while he was on holiday and says, hey, come to Havana. Castro had apparently read an article he had written for the Atlantic monthly magazine on Iran, Israel, and the U.S. Castro's fascinated by those issues, thinks they could all be coming to the brink of war at some point, says, I want to talk to you about that article. So he hops on a plane and goes to Cuba. But what's interesting here, this is not the first time we have had Castro, and I'll get to this issue in a second, having second thoughts about Cuba and the communist model. Let's have our viewers take a look at this.
Comrades, our nation is completely bankrupt. We have no choice but to abandon communism. I know, but we all knew from day one this mumbo-jumbo wouldn't fly.
Fidel Castro on The Simpsons.
A very animated Castro, as you can see. Now, let me just tell you, this interview was done a couple of days ago, right? This clip you just saw was from a 1998 episode of The Simpsons, going back 12 years. So, yeah, The Simpsons sort of anticipated. What did he say in this interview? Jeff Goldberg, the interviewer, spent 3 days with him, and on just one day alone, he had 5 hours of chat. On the second day, they went to the Havana Aquarium. We can show you a picture there when they were at the aquarium. This was a Monday. The aquarium in Havana, Mark's usually closed on Mondays. But as Castro told them, we'll make sure it's open this Monday. They're all sitting there. You see Castro looking like he's dressed in sort of LL Bean-style clothing there, not his usual military camouflage. And you see Jeff Goldberg, the reporter, there on the left. And you see that woman with the short, sort of blondish hair way in the back there.
Yep.
That's Celia Guevara, the daughter of the late
family.
Che.
Really?
She is now a dolphin veterinarian at the Havana Aquarium, in case you were
Bravo
wondering.
to her. Bravo
but listen,
to her.
no, there were some serious parts of this interview, obviously, as you mentioned at the top of this report here, Mark. Yes, he said the economic model is broken in Havana. It's not that one interpretation, he's not questioning the revolution itself, but he's saying that the way things are working these days in Cuba, they're just not. Also, harsh criticism, very harsh, of Iran's leader, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, basically lambasting him for denying the Holocaust, and also saying he should have a better understanding of the persecution that the Jews have undergone, and that he should understand why Israelis fear for their existence. He says, Castro says Jews have been the most slandered people in history, much more than the Muslims. That was a message to Ahmadinejad. And finally, talking about the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Remember, USSR almost brought the world to the
I've read about
brink.
it.
Yeah. Actually, you were about, what, 30 then, Mark? Almost brought the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation. He basically said if he knew today what if he knew now what he knew back then. No, if he knew now everything he knows, he would not have advised the Soviet Union to launch a nuclear attack against the United States. Now, as we all know, because we're sitting here, that never came to pass, luckily.
So this does sound in many ways like Castro is sort of turning his back to a degree on much of what has been his credo since
Very briefly,
since before
Mark,
he was in power and since 1959.
You're right. There are various theories. Is he old and senile? Is he just a lot
Far from it sounds.
No, he has a keen mind, as Jeff Goldberg said. He has a lot of energy, and he has a self-deprecating sense of humor and a sharp wit. He has a lot of time on his hands, too, so he has more time to reflect. This is a Castro looking at perhaps his legacy.
And you could take a leaf out of his book because he's got a very up-to-date and natty check shirt, so, you know.
There you go.
Douglas Herbert with a sideways look at Fidel Castro's latest pronouncements. That brings, I'm afraid, Live from Paris to a close. Thank you very much for joining us. But stay with us here in France 5 Cat. There's lots more news and analysis to come. Bye-bye. Au revoir. So Dudley.